The golden halls of Kithara Prime sparkled with light from 1,000 different worlds. Emperor Xiphon the Eternal sat on his crystal throne, watching alien ambassadors bow before him one by one. Today marked 3,000 years since the Velith Empire began its rule over the galaxy. Ships from every corner of space had come to pay tribute to their master. Admiral Dalon Thex stood beside the throne, his dark uniform covered in medals from countless victories. He watched the ceremony with cold eyes, thinking about the 10,000 warships that protected this world. No enemy had ever reached Kithara Prime. No enemy ever would. The Emperor raised his hand, and the great hall fell silent. "Another year of peace under our rule," Xiphon said, his voice echoing off the walls. "Another year of order in the chaos of space." The alien ambassadors nodded and smiled, but their eyes showed fear. They knew what happened to worlds that refused to pay tribute. Far from the palace, in a hidden station among the asteroids, Captain Jiho watched the ceremony through secret cameras. He was human, though no one in the Empire knew his people existed. For 300 years, humanity had hidden in the dark spaces between stars, learning and waiting. Jiho wore the uniform of a Terran Defense Coalition officer, but to the galaxy, humans were just another primitive species locked on one small world. Dr. Mina worked beside him, studying readings from her instruments. She was the best xenobiologist Earth had ever produced, and she had spent 20 years learning everything about the Velith Empire. Their technology, their weaknesses, their blind spots. All of it went into secret reports sent back to Earth through hidden communication networks. "The Emperor looks pleased with himself," Jiho said, watching Xiphon accept gifts from another, terrified alien delegation. "He should enjoy it while he can," Mina replied, checking her chronometer. "According to my calculations, this is probably his last day of Dominion celebration." Jiho raised an eyebrow. "You sound very certain about that." Mina smiled but said nothing. She had been reading classified reports from Earth for months. Humanity was finally ready to reveal itself to the galaxy, and the Velith Empire would be the first to learn what 3 centuries of hidden preparation could accomplish. In the palace's war room, Admiral Thex reviewed patrol reports from the outer systems. Everything was normal. A few pirate raids here and there, some minor rebellions on distant worlds, nothing the Empire could not handle with ease. The Velith military was the most powerful force in known space. Their ships were larger and faster than anything their enemies could build. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could stop entire fleets. Suddenly, alarms began to sound throughout the war room. A young officer ran to Thex with a datapad, his face pale with confusion. "Admiral, our long-range sensors have detected something unusual approaching the system." Thex took the pad and frowned. "A single ship? What species does it belong to?" "That's just it, sir. The computer cannot identify the design. It matches nothing in our database. The ship appears to be roughly frigate-sized, but it's moving through hyperspace at speeds we've never recorded before." The Admiral studied the readings more carefully. The unknown vessel was indeed fast, perhaps twice as quick as the Empire's best scouts, but it was still just one small ship against the entire home fleet. "Probably some lost explorer who took a wrong turn," Thex said, handing back the datapad. "Send a patrol to investigate, but don't interrupt the ceremony." The officer saluted and hurried away, but Thex felt a strange unease. In 3,000 years of empire, they had cataloged every ship design in the galaxy. How could something completely new appear now? Back at the hidden observation post, Jiho and Mina watched their instruments with growing excitement. The approaching ship's energy signature was unlike anything the Velith had ever encountered, but it was very familiar to human military officers. Those readings appeared in classified files that only the highest levels of Terran command were allowed to see. "Is that what I think it is?" Jiho asked quietly. Mina nodded, unable to hide her smile. TDC Retribution. She's early but right on schedule. The unknown vessel dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Cathara system, its hull a dark metal that seemed to absorb light. For several minutes, it simply floated in space, apparently scanning the massive defensive installations that protected the Empire's capital world. Then it began moving toward the planet at a steady, unhurried pace. In the palace war room, confusion turned to alarm as more detailed scans came in. The ship's hull was made from materials that appeared in no Imperial database. Its energy signature suggested power systems far beyond anything the Empire had developed. Most disturbing of all, every attempt to scan the vessel's interior returned nothing but static. Admiral Thex ordered a full squadron of interceptors to approach the intruder, but before they could launch, something unprecedented happened. The unknown ship began broadcasting a message in perfect Valith, using official Imperial communication protocols that were supposed to be secret. By order of the Terran Defense Coalition, this empire is hereby dissolved. You have 60 seconds to surrender unconditionally. The message repeated 3 times, then stopped. Silence filled the war room as every officer stared at the communication console. Someone had just ordered the mighty Valith Empire to surrender to a species most of them had never heard of. Emperor Xiphon learned of the message within minutes, and his laughter echoed through the palace. "Terran," he said, wiping tears from his eyes. "Humans? Those backward mammals who can barely leave their own star system? This is someone's idea of a joke." But Admiral Thex was not laughing. He had studied every known species in the galaxy, and humans were indeed considered primitive by Imperial standards. They had never developed faster-than-light travel, never built an interstellar empire, never even made contact with other species. How could they possess a ship that traveled faster than anything in the Valith fleet? "Prepare the entire home. Fleet for departure," Thex ordered. "I want every ship we have surrounding that vessel within the hour." "Sir, surely that's overkill for one small ship." "Nothing about this situation makes sense," the Admiral replied grimly. "When nothing makes sense, I prepare for the worst." As 200 of the Empire's mightiest dreadnoughts powered up their engines, Captain Jiho watched from his hidden station with mixed feelings. He was about to witness the end of the most powerful empire in galactic history, but he also knew that thousands of Valith officers and crew would die in the next few hours. Most of them were just following orders, serving a system they had been born into. Dr. Mina noticed his expression and put a hand on his shoulder. "They've had 3,000 years to choose a different path," she said softly. "Every world they conquered, every species they enslaved, every innocent life they destroyed. Earth gave them centuries to prove they could change. And now? Now humanity stops hiding and shows the galaxy what we've learned while they thought we were still banging. Rocks together." The TDC Retribution continued its steady approach toward Cathara Prime, ignoring the massive fleet forming up to intercept it. The ship's hull remained dark and silent, giving no hint of the revolutionary technology contained within. To Imperial sensors, it looked like nothing more than an oversized courier vessel, hardly worth the attention of a single destroyer, let alone the entire home fleet. Emperor Xiphon decided to watch the confrontation from his throne room, confident that this strange interruption would be over quickly. Admiral Thex boarded his flagship, the mighty Eternal Conquest, and prepared to teach these upstart humans the price of challenging Valith power. Neither of them understood that they were about to witness the first demonstration of quantum dissolution. Technology, a weapon that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The age of the Valith Empire was ending, and the age of human ascendancy was about to begin. The Valith home fleet moved through space like a metal storm. 200 dreadnoughts, each one the size of a small city, formed perfect attack formations around Admiral Thex's flagship. The Eternal Conquest led the charge, its weapons powered, and ready to demonstrate imperial might to this foolish human vessel. Admiral Thex stood on his command bridge, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. Each of his ships carried enough firepower to level continents. Their combined strength could crack moons or boil away planetary atmospheres. Whatever technology this mysterious human ship possessed, it could not possibly stand against such overwhelming force. "Target acquired, Admiral," reported his weapons officer. "The alien vessel continues on its current course with no attempt to evade or withdraw." "Foolish," Thex muttered. "They must not understand what they're facing." He opened a communication channel to the unknown ship. "Attention, human vessel. You have entered restricted Imperial space and threatened the sovereignty of the Valeth Empire. Surrender immediately or face complete destruction." The response came back in the same calm voice that had delivered the original ultimatum. "Admiral Thex of the Eternal Conquest, you have 47 seconds remaining to surrender unconditionally. This is your final warning." The bridge fell silent. Someone aboard that ship knew the Admiral's name and the name of his flagship, information that should have been impossible for any human to obtain. Thex felt a chill run down his spine, but his pride would not allow him to show weakness before his officers. Commander Sayok watched the confrontation unfold from his position deep within Valeth territory. For 15 years, he had posed as a minor administrator on a conquered world, building intelligence networks and preparing for this moment. He wore the robes of a colonial bureaucrat, but underneath was the uniform of a Terran Defense Coalition Special Operations Officer. The underground resistance cells he had helped organize were ready to strike at Imperial installations throughout the sector. They had been waiting for this signal, the moment when humanity would finally reveal itself and break the chains that bound so many worlds under Valeth rule. Sayok activated his hidden communicator and sent a coded message to Resistance, leaders on 17 different planets. "The dawn is here. Begin Phase 1 operations." Within hours, Imperial garrisons across the sector would find themselves fighting enemies who seemed to know their every weakness. Aboard the TDC Retribution, General Hyun reviewed his mission parameters one final time. The ship's crew of only 37 officers represented the best humanity had to offer. Each one was a volunteer, knowing they might not survive this historic confrontation. But they also knew that their actions would determine whether the galaxy continued to suffer under Imperial tyranny or finally found freedom. Dr. Hana, the ship's chief scientist and the primary developer of their revolutionary weapon systems, made final adjustments to the quantum dissolution matrix. Her breakthrough in zero-point energy manipulation had taken 40 years to perfect, but the result was beyond anything previous human science had imagined possible. "All systems show green, General," she reported. "The quantum field generators are stable and ready for deployment." "Excellent work, Doctor. How long for full system activation?" 12 seconds once you give the order, sir." General Hyun nodded and opened a channel to Terran Command back on Earth. "This is Retribution. We are in position and ready to proceed. Final authorization requested." The response came immediately from President Dong himself. "Authorization granted, General. Show them what humanity can do." The countdown timer on Hyun's display showed 38 seconds remaining. Around his ship, the entire Valeth home fleet closed to optimal firing range. He could see weapon ports opening on the massive dreadnoughts, their energy signatures building to lethal levels. Dr. Mina watched the confrontation from her hidden observation post, her instruments recording everything for future analysis. The Valeth ships were indeed impressive, representing centuries of military engineering and design. Their shields could deflect almost any known weapon, their armor could withstand direct hits from antimatter warheads, and their firepower was legendary throughout the galaxy. But Dr. Mina had read the classified reports from Earth's weapons development program. She knew that conventional shields and armor meant nothing against quantum dissolution technology. The Valeth fleet was about to learn that there were forces in the universe far more dangerous than any weapon they could imagine. Captain Jiho felt his hands trembling as he monitored the communications channels. 300 years of hiding, 300 years of watching the Empire crush innocent species while humanity prepared in secret. All of it came down to the next few seconds. Unknown vessel. You have 15 seconds to surrender before we open. Fire, Admiral Thex announced, his voice carrying the authority of 3 millennia of unbroken Imperial victory. The human ship's response was immediate and terrifying in its calm certainty. Admiral, you have 15 seconds to save the lives of your crews. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences of your choice. Thex's anger finally overcame his caution. No one threatened the Valeth Empire. No one questioned Imperial authority. And certainly no primitive human had the right to speak to him as an equal. All ships, open fire. Destroy that vessel completely. The space around the TDC Retribution erupted in light as 200 of the galaxy's most powerful warships unleashed their fury. Energy beams that could vaporize asteroids, plasma torpedoes capable of penetrating any known defense, particle, cannons that fired projectiles at nearly the speed of light. The combined barrage represented enough destructive power to sterilize an entire world. Every shot simply vanished the moment it touched the human ship's hull. There were no explosions, no energy dispersal, no defensive screens flickering under. Impact. The weapon's fire simply ceased to exist, as if it had never been fired at all. The TDC Retribution continued its steady approach, completely unaffected by the most devastating attack in Imperial history. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, Admiral Thex stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Impossible. Nothing can absorb that much firepower without showing some effect. Sir, our sensors show no energy buildup, no defensive systems, nothing that could explain what we just witnessed, his science officer reported, voice tight with confusion and fear. Fire again. Full power, all ships. The second barrage was even more intense than the first, with every weapon system in the fleet operating at maximum capacity. The result was identical. Every shot vanished upon contact with the human vessel, leaving no trace of impact or damage. General Hyun checked his countdown timer. 5 seconds remaining. He activated the ship's internal communication system. All hands, prepare for quantum dissolution deployment. History will remember this moment. Dr. Hana's instruments showed the quantum field generators reaching full power. The technology worked by manipulating the fundamental forces that held matter together, essentially convincing atoms that they no longer needed to exist. It was clean, precise, and absolutely unstoppable. Quantum matrix fully charged, General. Ready for deployment on your command. Fire. The TDC Retribution's hull began to glow with an eerie blue light as invisible waves of restructured space-time rippled outward in all directions. To observers, nothing seemed to happen. There were no visible beams, no dramatic explosions, no spectacular light shows. The waves moved faster than light itself, reaching the Imperial fleet in microseconds. When the quantum dissolution field touched the outer ring of Valeth dreadnoughts, 50 of the Empire's mightiest warships simply stopped existing. They did not explode or break apart. They did not leave wreckage or debris. One moment they were there, fully operational and ready for battle. The next moment, there was only empty space where they had been. Admiral Thex watched in horror as his tactical display updated, showing 50 ship icons simply disappearing from the screen. What happened to the outer perimeter? Sir, I'm not reading any explosions. No energy signatures. No debris fields. The ships are just gone. Gone? Ships don't just disappear. Run a full sensor sweep. The results came back negative. 50 dreadnoughts, each crewed by over 10,000 officers and crew, had vanished without a trace. It was as if they had never existed at all. Commander Sayok felt his communicator vibrate with an update from the resistance networks. Imperial garrisons across 17 worlds were reporting equipment failures and mysterious disappearances. Weapons simply stopped working, defensive systems shut down for no apparent reason, and communication networks went silent. The underground had been preparing for this moment for decades, but even they had not expected such complete and immediate success. Dr. Mina's instruments registered the quantum field expansion and its effects on the Imperial fleet. The readings confirmed her worst fears about what humanity had become during their centuries of isolation. They had not just developed new technology, they had fundamentally rewritten the laws of physics to serve their purposes. General Hyun studied the tactical display, noting the perfect precision of the quantum dissolution field. Only military vessels had been affected. Civilian ships, orbital stations, and planetary installations remained untouched. This was not a weapon of mass destruction. Captain Tay worked at his tactical station aboard the TDC Retribution with calm precision. The first quantum dissolution wave had eliminated the outer ring of the Valith formation exactly as planned. Now it was time to show the Empire what happened when 3 centuries of human scientific advancement focused on a single goal. Second wave targeting solutions calculated and ready, General, Tay reported to General Hyun. His voice carried no emotion, but inside he felt the weight of history. Every calculation he made would determine the fate of countless worlds across the galaxy. Lieutenant Wu monitored the navigation systems from her station, tracking the movement of the remaining Imperial ships. The Valith fleet was trying to retreat, but their formation had been carefully chosen for this demonstration. There would be no escape, no chance for even a single vessel to carry word of human capabilities back to other Imperial forces. Enemy ships attempting to withdraw. "Sir," Wu reported. "Engines at maximum burn, but they're still within optimal field range." Admiral Thex stood frozen on the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, staring at displays that made no sense. 50 of his most powerful ships had simply vanished, leaving no trace of their existence. His science officers were running every diagnostic they could think of, but their instruments insisted that nothing unusual had happened. The ships were simply gone, as if they had never been built. "All remaining vessels, emergency jump to hyperspace," Thex ordered, his voice cracking with strain. "Execute immediately." But before the Imperial ships could engage their faster-than-light drives, the second quantum wave rippled outward from the human vessel. This time, 100 dreadnoughts disappeared in perfect silence. Their crews never even had time to realize what was happening. One moment they existed. The next moment, they were simply erased from reality. The remaining Valith officers watched their comrades vanish and finally understood that they were facing something beyond their comprehension. This was not advanced technology or superior tactics. This was something that violated every law of physics they thought they knew. Dr. Hana monitored the quantum field generators from her position in the Retribution's science section. The technology was performing flawlessly, each wave precisely calibrated to eliminate specific targets while leaving everything else untouched. She had spent 40 years developing this system, and seeing it work so perfectly filled her with both pride and sadness. "Field coherence holding at optimal levels," she reported to General Hyun. "No degradation detected. System ready for final wave deployment." General Hyun studied the tactical display, watching the final 50 Imperial ships struggle desperately to escape. These were not evil beings, just soldiers following orders in a system they had inherited. But the empire they served had shown no mercy to countless innocent species across the galaxy. Today, that debt would be paid in full. From her hidden observation post, Dr. Mina recorded every detail of the engagement for future analysis. The quantum dissolution technology represented a fundamental breakthrough in human understanding of reality itself. By manipulating the quantum field that underlay all matter, it was possible to convince atoms that they no longer needed to exist. The process was clean, efficient, and absolutely unstoppable. Captain Jiho watched his instruments track the expanding quantum fields with a mixture of awe and horror. Humanity had become something unprecedented in galactic history, not conquerors, like the Valeth, but guardians with the power to reshape reality itself. The responsibility that came with such technology was almost too great to comprehend. Commander Siok received updates from resistance cells across the sector through his hidden communication network. Imperial installations were failing simultaneously across 17 star systems. Weapons ceased to function, defensive shields collapsed, and communication arrays went silent. The coordination was perfect, suggesting that humanity had been planning this operation for decades. The underground forces he had helped organize were moving quickly to secure strategic positions, while Imperial troops found themselves cut off from command and control. Years of careful preparation were paying off as world after world slipped from Imperial control in a matter of hours. Back aboard the Eternal Conquest, Admiral Thex made a desperate decision. If retreat was impossible, perhaps he could at least learn something about this terrifying enemy before his fleet was completely destroyed. He ordered his science officers to focus all their sensors on the human vessel, hoping to gather intelligence that might help the Empire develop countermeasures. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy buildups around the alien ship," his science officer reported. "The readings don't match any known power system. It's as if they're drawing energy directly from empty space itself. Can you determine the source of their weapon?" "No, sir. Our instruments show energy patterns that should be impossible according to known physics. Whatever they're doing, it's beyond our current understanding of science." Lieutenant Wu adjusted the Retribution's position slightly, ensuring optimal field projection for the final wave. Her navigation calculations had to account for the quantum effects of the dissolution fields, which created minor distortions in local space-time. It was precision flying at its most demanding level. "Final targeting solution confirmed," she reported. "All remaining enemy vessels within field range." Captain Tay verified the targeting data one last time. The final 50 ships included Admiral Thex's flagship, the pride of the Imperial fleet. Destroying it would send a clear message to every other power in the galaxy. The age of Valeth dominance was ending, and the age of human protection was beginning. "All systems ready for final wave deployment," Tay announced. General Hyun opened a communication channel to the surviving Imperial ships. "Admiral Thex, you have fought bravely, but this engagement is over. In 10 seconds, your remaining vessels will be eliminated. I want you to understand that this demonstration was necessary to prevent the continued suffering of innocent species across the galaxy. The Valeth Empire ends today." Admiral Thex listened to the human general's words with growing despair. Everything he had believed about Imperial superiority was crumbling around him. His mighty fleet, the most powerful force in known space, was being casually destroyed by a single ship from a species he had considered primitive. "Who are you?" Thex transmitted back. "What do you want?" "We are humanity," General Hyun replied. "We want peace, freedom, and justice for all sentient beings. Your empire has provided none of these things. Therefore, it must end." Dr. Hana watched the final countdown reach its conclusion. The quantum dissolution technology would soon erase the last remnants of Imperial naval power from this sector. But, more importantly, it would demonstrate to the galaxy that there were forces capable of standing against tyranny and oppression. "Final wave deploying now," she announced. The third quantum pulse expanded outward from the TDC Retribution, moving faster than light itself toward the remaining Imperial vessels. Admiral Thex had just enough time to realize that his 3,000-year-old empire was about to end before the dissolution field reached his flagship. The Eternal Conquest, along with its crew of 10,000 and the admiral who had served the Empire faithfully for 6 decades, simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris, no final transmission. The ship and everyone aboard it were erased from reality as if they had never been. Captain Jiho watched the last Imperial ship icon disappear from his tactical display. The entire Valith home fleet, 200 of the most powerful warships ever constructed, had been eliminated in less than 10 minutes. The demonstration was complete, and its message was clear to anyone who might be watching. Dr. Mina began compiling her observations into a report that would be transmitted back to Earth. The quantum dissolution technology had performed beyond all expectations, proving that humanity possessed the ability to protect the galaxy from any threat. But she also knew that such power came with enormous responsibility. Commander Siok received confirmation that Imperial resistance across 17 star systems had collapsed completely. Without naval support or functioning communication networks, isolated garrisons were surrendering to local resistance forces. The liberation of dozens of worlds was happening simultaneously across the sector. General Hyun turned his attention toward Kithara Prime, the fortress world that served as the Empire's capital. The planetary defense grid was already powering up, preparing for what its operators assumed would be a conventional attack. They had no idea that their shields and weapons were useless against quantum dissolution technology. Lieutenant Wu plotted a course toward the heavily defended planet. "Approaching Kithara Prime, General. Planetary defenses are active and tracking our position. Excellent. It's time to complete our mission and end this empire once and for all." The TDC Retribution moved steadily toward the capital world, its dark hull reflecting no light as it passed through the debris field where the Imperial fleet had once existed. But there was no debris. The quantum dissolution process left nothing behind except empty space and the growing realization throughout the galaxy that everything had changed. Dr. Hana prepared her systems for the final phase of the operation. The planetary defense grid around Kithara Prime was formidable, but it relied on conventional physics and traditional weapons. The planetary defense grid around Kithara Prime represented the pinnacle of Valith military engineering. Massive energy projectors built into the planet's crust could generate shields strong enough to deflect stellar bombardment. Weapon platforms, scattered throughout the system, carried enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. For 3,000 years, these defenses had made the Imperial capital completely untouchable. General No studied the tactical data from his position aboard the TDC Retribution. As the commander of Terran ground forces, he would be responsible for the occupation and reconstruction of Kithara Prime once the planetary defenses were eliminated. Unlike the brutal conquests that had built the Valith Empire, humanity intended to rebuild rather than exploit. Defensive grid shows over 3,000 individual weapon platforms, No reported to General Hyun. Combined firepower rating exceeds anything in our historical database. They could theoretically destroy a small moon with a sustained bombardment. And how long to eliminate all defensive installations using quantum dissolution? Approximately 47 seconds, sir. Dr. Yeon worked alongside General No, finalizing the humanitarian relief plans that would go into effect immediately after the Empire's surrender. As humanity's leading xenopolitical specialist, she had spent decades studying the various species that suffered under Imperial rule. The transition to freedom would require careful management to prevent chaos and civil war. Medical supplies and food distribution networks are ready for deployment, Yeon reported. We have enough resources prepared to support the civilian population through the transition period. Our cultural liaison teams are standing by to begin communication with local leaders. Emperor Xiphon the Eternal paced frantically through his palace chambers, watching reports of his fleet's complete annihilation. The impossible had happened. His invincible navy, the foundation of imperial power for millennia, had been erased by a single alien vessel. Now that same ship was approaching his world, and he had no idea how to stop it. "My Emperor, the planetary defense grid is fully active," reported his military advisor. "Every weapon system is charged and ready. We can deliver more destructive force than has ever been concentrated in one place." "And you think that will succeed where our entire fleet failed?" Xiphon's voice cracked with desperation. "Did you see what happened to Admiral Thex's ships? They just disappeared. No explosions, no wreckage, nothing." The truth was finally sinking in. The Valeth Empire, which had seemed eternal and unshakable, was facing an enemy completely beyond their understanding. Everything they had built, everything they had conquered, was about to be taken away by beings they had dismissed as primitive animals. General Hyun opened a communication channel to the Imperial Palace. "Emperor Xiphon, this is General Hyun of the Terran Defense Coalition. Your fleet has been eliminated, and your empire is defeated. I am offering you one final opportunity to surrender unconditionally and spare the lives of your people." The response came back immediately, filled with rage and denial. "Never. The Valeth Empire does not surrender to inferior species. Our defenses will destroy you just as they have destroyed every other enemy for 3,000 years. Very well. You have made your choice." Dr. Hana initiated the quantum field generators as the TDC Retribution approached the edge of the planetary defense grid. The technology that had eliminated the Imperial fleet would now be turned against the installations that protected Kithara Prime. But this time, the targeting would be even more precise, eliminating only military installations while leaving civilian areas completely untouched. The planet's defensive systems opened fire the moment the human ship entered their range. Energy beams powerful enough to vaporize asteroids, antimatter warheads capable of cracking continents, and gravity bombs that could destabilize a planet's core all targeted the lone vessel approaching their world. Every shot vanished the instant it touched the Retribution's hull. The quantum absorption field that protected the ship simply convinced the incoming weapons that they no longer needed to exist. 3,000 years of defensive planning and preparation proved completely useless against technology that rewrote the fundamental laws of physics. Lieutenant Wu adjusted the ship's course to provide optimal targeting angles for the quantum dissolution system. Her navigation had to account for the massive gravitational effects of Kithara Prime while maintaining precise positioning for the weapon systems. One miscalculation could result in civilian casualties, something humanity would never accept. "Optimal. Firing position achieved," Wu reported. "All planetary defense installations within field range." Captain Tay verified the targeting data with obsessive care. The quantum dissolution field would eliminate every military installation on and around Kithara Prime, but it had to be calibrated to avoid affecting civilian structures. The precision required was incredible, but human technology was more than capable of achieving it. Targeting solutions confirmed. All military installations marked for elimination. Civilian areas clearly designated as protected zones. Dr. Mina watched the engagement from her hidden observation post, recording every detail for the historical archives. This was the moment when galactic civilization would fundamentally change. The demonstration of human capabilities would reshape the balance of power throughout known space, ending the age of empires built on conquest and oppression. Commander Seok received final updates from resistance networks across the galaxy. News of the Imperial fleet's destruction was spreading rapidly through underground communication channels. On dozens of worlds, occupied populations were rising up against their oppressors, knowing that help had finally arrived from an unexpected source. The liberation movements he had helped organize were coordinating their actions with precision. That suggested decades of preparation. Imperial garrisons found themselves cut off from support, their weapons mysteriously failing, their communication systems going silent. World after world was slipping away from Imperial control. General Hyun gave the final order. "Dr. Hana, eliminate all planetary defenses. Begin quantum dissolution sequence." The quantum field expanded outward from the TDC Retribution in carefully controlled pulses. Each wave was precisely calibrated to affect only military installations, while leaving everything else completely untouched. The process was so controlled that civilian observers on the planet's surface saw only brief flashes of blue light as the defensive grid simply vanished. 3,000 weapon platforms built, over centuries at enormous cost, ceased to exist in less than a minute. The shield generators that had protected Kithara Prime for millennia disappeared without a trace. The orbital fortresses that had been the pride of Imperial engineering were erased from reality as if they had never been constructed. Emperor Xiphon watched from his palace as every defensive installation around his world simply stopped existing. His instruments showed no explosions, no energy signatures, no debris fields. The most powerful defensive grid ever constructed had been eliminated so completely that there was no evidence it had ever existed. "My Emperor, all defensive systems are offline," his military advisor reported, voice hollow with shock. "We're reading total system failure across all platforms." "System failure? They didn't fail. They disappeared. Everything is gone." The Emperor finally understood that his empire was truly finished. This enemy possessed power beyond anything the Valeth had ever imagined. They could erase matter from existence itself, making resistance not just futile, but completely meaningless. General No prepared the occupation forces as the TDC retribution approached Kithara Prime's upper atmosphere. Unlike the conquest fleets that had built the empire through fear and violence, humanity's forces were equipped for reconstruction and humanitarian relief. Their goal was to help, not to exploit. "All ground units ready for deployment," No reported. "Medical teams, engineering corps, and diplomatic staff are prepared to begin operations immediately upon your order." Dr. Yan opened communication channels to civilian leaders across Kithara Prime. "Citizens of the former Valeth Empire, this is Dr. Yan of the Terran Defense Coalition. Your military forces have been eliminated, but you have nothing to fear from us. We come as liberators, not conquerors. Remain calm and await further instructions." The TDC retribution positioned itself directly above the Imperial Palace, its quantum dissolution systems focused on the building's defensive installations. A single, precisely controlled pulse eliminated every weapon and shield generator while leaving the structure itself completely intact. Emperor Xiphon the Eternal found himself defenseless for the first time in his 3,000-year reign. General Hyun transmitted his final message to the defeated emperor. "Xiphon, your empire is ended and your defenses are eliminated. You will surrender unconditionally and submit to Terran authority. The age of Valeth domination is over. The age of human protection has begun." For the first time in galactic history, an empire that had ruled for millennia was forced to surrender to a species they had never considered a threat. The Valeth Empire, which had seemed eternal and unshakable, collapsed in a single day before enemies who possessed the power to rewrite reality itself. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Kithara Prime, and the galaxy was transforming in ways no one had thought possible. The Valeth Empire, which had ruled for 3 millennia, was being systematically dismantled and rebuilt under human guidance. What had once been a collection of conquered territories was becoming something unprecedented in galactic history, a voluntary confederation of free worlds. Captain Jiho stood in his new office on Kithara Prime, wearing the uniform of a Terran, Protectorate Administrator. The hidden observation post where he had watched the Empire's fall was now obsolete. Humanity no longer needed to hide among the stars. The whole galaxy knew what they were capable of, and most species were eager to cooperate with their new protectors. Through his window, Jiho could see construction crews working to rebuild the planet's infrastructure. Human engineering teams worked alongside former Imperial citizens, teaching advanced technologies that would improve life for everyone. The brutal efficiency of Imperial rule was being replaced by something far more effective, voluntary cooperation based on mutual benefit. Dr. Mina had been promoted to head the new Galactic Scientific Exchange Program, facilitating the sharing of knowledge between humanity and dozens of other species. Her xenobiology research was proving invaluable as Earth's scientists worked to understand and help the various civilizations that had suffered under imperial oppression. The medical advances alone have been incredible, she told Jiho during one of their regular briefings. Combining human quantum manipulation with Xylanthi bioengineering and Corvin crystalline computing has produced treatments for diseases that have plagued the galaxy for centuries. Admiral Kyung commanded the new Terran Deep Space Fleet from his flagship, the TDS Guardian. Unlike the massive dreadnoughts that had symbolized imperial power, human vessels were smaller, faster, and infinitely more capable. The quantum dissolution technology that had ended the Empire was now being used to clear asteroid fields, eliminate space debris, and even terraform dead worlds. We have 57 ships operational and ready for deployment, Kyung reported during a secure communication with Earth. Each vessel is equipped with the latest quantum manipulation systems, but configured for construction rather than destruction. Our mission is to protect and rebuild, not to conquer. The Admiral's fleet patrolled trade routes that were now free from the tribute collectors and oppressive regulations of the old empire. Species that had been forbidden to communicate with each other were forming new alliances and sharing technologies. The galaxy was experiencing a renaissance of cooperation and innovation. President Dong addressed the Galactic Assembly from Earth's capital, speaking to representatives from over 200 worlds. The formation of the Terran Protectorate had been voluntary, with each species choosing their level of participation. Unlike the forced unity of the Empire, this new alliance was built on genuine cooperation. We offer protection without domination, guidance without control, Dong declared to the assembled delegates. Earth seeks no tribute, demands no submission, and claims no territory beyond our own system. We ask only that you join us in building a galaxy where all sentient beings can prosper in peace. The response from the galactic community had been overwhelmingly positive. Species that had suffered under imperial rule for generations were eager to experience real freedom. Even former imperial citizens were discovering that life under human protection was far better than anything they had known under their own government. Director Young headed the new Galactic Reconstruction Authority, coordinating relief efforts across hundreds of worlds. Her teams were equipped with technology that seemed like magic to most galactic civilizations. Quantum manipulation could rebuild devastated cities in days, restore poisoned atmospheres in weeks, and bring dead worlds back to life in months. The environmental restoration on Nexus 7 is proceeding ahead of schedule, Young reported during a coordination meeting. The atmosphere is already breathable again, and we expect full ecological recovery within the year. The local population is amazed that anyone would invest such resources in their world without expecting anything in return. Commander Seok had emerged from his deep cover assignment to help coordinate the transition of former Imperial territories. The resistance networks he had spent years building were now being converted into legitimate governments, with human advisors helping to establish democratic institutions and fair legal systems. The transformation has been remarkable, Seok reported. From his new position as Director of Political Transition, worlds that were brutal dictatorships under imperial rule are becoming functioning democracies. The former imperial citizens are learning that there are alternatives to oppression and exploitation. Dr. Hana continued her research, but now focused on constructive applications of quantum manipulation technology. The weapon that had destroyed an empire in minutes was being transformed into tools that could solve problems that had plagued galactic civilization for millennia. We can literally rebuild matter at the quantum level, she explained to a gathering of the galaxy's leading scientists. Dead worlds can be restored to life, polluted atmospheres can be cleansed, and even genetic damage from radiation exposure can be repaired. The same technology that ended the Empire can heal the wounds it left behind. The TDC Retribution, the ship that had changed galactic history, was being converted into a memorial and museum. Visitors from across the galaxy came. to see the vessel that had demonstrated humanity's incredible capabilities. But more importantly, they came to learn about the civilization that had chosen to use such power for protection rather than conquest. Captain Tay, now promoted to admiral, took command of the Memorial Project. His tactical station, where he had calculated the targeting solutions that eliminated the Imperial fleet, was preserved exactly as it had been during the historic battle. School children from dozens of worlds came to learn about the day when everything changed. The important lesson is not what we destroyed, but what we chose to build afterward, Tay told groups of young visitors. Power without wisdom leads to tyranny. Wisdom without power leads to helplessness. Only when both are combined can true justice be achieved. Lieutenant Wu commanded one of the new exploration vessels that were mapping previously unknown regions of the galaxy. With the Empire gone, species that had hidden in remote systems were finally emerging to make contact with the broader galactic community. Each new discovery added to the growing diversity of the Terran Protectorate. We've made contact with 17 new species in the past month alone, Wu reported from the edge of explored space. All of them are eager to join the Protectorate and contribute to our common prosperity. The galaxy is much larger and more diverse than anyone realized under Imperial rule. General No oversaw the Galactic Defense Corps, a multinational force dedicated to preventing future empires from rising to threaten peaceful species. The GDC included volunteers from over 100 worlds, all united by their commitment to protecting freedom and preventing oppression. Our motto says it all, No explained to new recruits during their graduation ceremony. Never again. We will never allow another empire to spread suffering across the stars unchallenged. The galaxy has learned what happens when good beings do nothing while evil spreads. Dr. Yeon's humanitarian programs had established medical centers, schools, and research facilities on hundreds of worlds. Former imperial territories were experiencing levels of prosperity and freedom they had never imagined possible. The human approach to governance was proving far more effective than 3 millennia of imperial rule. The difference is simple, Yeon explained to a gathering of planetary leaders. The Empire extracted wealth from its territories to benefit the rulers. The Protectorate invests resources in its members to benefit everyone. When people are free and prosperous, they choose to cooperate rather than being forced to submit. Other major galactic powers had taken note of humanity's emergence and were eager to establish diplomatic relations. The hegemony of worlds, the Silicon Collective, and the Psionic Concordat all sent ambassadors to Earth, offering treaties of mutual cooperation and non-aggression. President Dong received these ambassadors with the same message he had given to the Galactic Assembly. Earth seeks friendship with all peaceful civilizations. We will defend ourselves and our allies against any threat, but we have no desire for conquest or domination. The galaxy is large enough for everyone to prosper. The quantum dissolution, technology remained highly classified, but its existence had fundamentally altered galactic politics. Every government in known space understood that humanity possessed the ability to eliminate any threat completely and instantly. But more importantly, they had seen that humanity preferred building to destroying. Admiral Kyung addressed the graduating class of the new Terran Space Academy, where officers from dozens of species trained together to protect their common civilization. You represent the future of the galaxy, he told them. A future where diversity is celebrated, where cooperation replaces conquest, and where the strong protect the weak rather than exploiting them. The transformation was visible everywhere. Trade routes that had been restricted under imperial law were now open to all species. Technologies that had been hoarded,